Hello, dear viewers. Thank you for joining us for another show of the series, The Solution, where we're verifying Kabbalist Dr. social and economic approach. We have Dr. Michael Laitman in the studio with us, and Igor Litvornev, economic consultant. Before we start, we want to remind you that you can watch all our shows on our site, www.kab.co.il, and you can also watch them on channel 66. Today we're going to deal with a very interesting subject, the free market and balance in this market. We want to verify what a balanced market is, economic balance, also according to the classic approach and the integral approach. What are the similarities? What's the free market and a free person from the perspective of the social economy? First of all, the classic approach, it deals with the economic person, a person that wants to profit as much as possible. And if there's enough people using the free market, that's the assumption. And if it's sophisticated enough, then the economy will be balanced. The economists don't really understand what the balance brings, but they call it the hidden hand. Adam Smith said, he claimed that our egoistic behavior will advance the good of the public, the general. And that way they can reach a minimum poverty and maximum wealth. Also, the integral approach has a recipe for balance. Despite the similarities in words, it's clear that these two approaches don't have anything in common. So we'll start with a quote from Adam Smith, his book about happiness. Every detail works to increase the profit of the society as much as possible. He's not interested in advancing the things of the public. He's only directed toward getting more profit for himself. And in that way, in many cases, there's a hidden hand advancing at a goal that has nothing to do with his intention. And it doesn't harm society in any way. While he's going after his own things, at the same time, he's also advancing society's things with more efficiency than he intended to. I never expected a great good to come out of those that are trying to profit, that try to do something good for the society. It's all correct, because it's based on a person's private ego, like we're directed at any moment by our ego, and we direct ourselves where we can achieve the greater profit with the least investment. Our entire body and our brain and our feelings are directing us in that way. So this approach is really a healthy approach, a natural approach. And if we would exist in this way, then we would reach maybe a different life than we have today. But I don't think that we've reached with that same economy to the truly free economy, and to an economy through which, if a person wants to benefit himself, he's also benefiting the public. That's completely incorrect. We see that people that discover the power and they gather the power of money in their hands, they're starting to break the free market, apparently. And it's becoming less free, it's becoming limited. It's becoming something crooked. They're not allowing new technologies to develop because it's not worth it for them. They're starting to create all kinds of things that are good for them and not good for people. Our ego is not necessarily working in such a direct and naive manner that Adam Smith wrote 200 years ago. So therefore, this crookedness that our ego brings us to, truly to like this crookedness in society and commerce. It's really some kind of mutation, this distortion, that we don't feel that we're succeeding in it. Only the upper elite is succeeding at it, and they're no more the top 10%. They're getting smaller and smaller, and just the opposite. We're becoming like slaves. There's no free market or anything. They're operated by all kinds of special technologies with the psychologists and sociologists that the upper class have, and it's not it's not for the benefit of the public at all. That's how it developed. But what he writes is true, but it's truly for the beginning of the egoistic economy, the natural, correct. So we received an answer also for the next answer. For the next question, we wanted to ask you, what is this egoistic behavior of a few free players that will contribute to the good of the public and bring about balance? We see it's not like that. Those same few people that have the capital, 90% or even more, they're starting to influence they're starting to do what they think is good for them with politics, the global economy, everything. And the whole world is starting to be in the hands of a few dozen families and nothing more. And we don't see the good of the public there, the good of the citizen at all. The more we advance, it's clear to us more and more. What's the main reason that Adam Smith didn't see that this development would bring about balance? Our ego is truly like that, pushing us each time to the good directions where we can profit more, maximize profit, and invest a minimum. But let's say, I would say it's a primitive way of looking at it. It's narrow and short-term. After, when people start gathering together that have the power of money and the power of control, and when they connect with politicians and they start to play with their money in all kinds of places, then they buy all kinds of organizations like unions, and then everything's in their hands, and then they become the bad force. And that's already development from the simple ego. When it reaches some results of its own, and it's no longer good. We see today, even in medicine, how much it's working for the bad of the person. We see how much they're manufacturing things for us to use and throw away and buy new ones, that this consumption society doesn't have to be consuming. It should be a society that's happy with life, and not that it's existing to buy and throw away and buy and throw away. Adam Smith reminds us in his quotes about this hidden hand for reaching balance in the free market. Igor and I spoke about this before the show. From what we remember in university, they really say, that professors say, that there's some system that's not clear that brings balance between many egoistic players. Even though they each want for themselves, there's some system that creates the balance at the end of the day. The economists don't know how to explain it. That's what they call the hidden hand. It's the network of connections between us, that we're all connected together. And this connection, if it's revealed between us in the simple manner, like say in a very simple, non-developed society, here it's worth it to be to do this profession. It's good to make cars, make clothes, make an energy, etc. Each one finds himself, and then we're all integrated together in one system, and it works out. It only works out on the condition that we truly operate at the first level in the connection between us. If we begin to connect and gather forces from big organizations, then we're no longer interested in giving other people a free hand. Then we start to repress them. We start to organize society with politics and all kinds of other factors. And there's no free market for everyone, and we're no longer organized according to the simple law. You reminded us now that at the first level, the system works. It's really, truly like that. So we want to ask, what's that same hidden hand in the integral economy? What power is it based on? In our development, according to the model of Adam Smith, it's not really a model. This is how we want it to develop, according to our ego, according to our nature. Not that he created some model and we're developing according to that model. It's our natural model. When we start to develop, we reach mutations, that society becomes distorted. There's forces that are stopping the normal development, and there's no free market, and there's all kinds of conditions, and banks and investment, venture capital, there are all kinds of games, and no one has enough to participate in a free manner, but it's all through governments and decision makers, etc. And the power of the money, the power of the ego is managing the whole game. We're rising above this normal network, this hidden hand. We're no longer participating in this manner that each one who is more profitable, then he's more successful, then the other one loses, but that's how it should be in nature. And when we develop in that, there's at least two factors. The first factor is that our ego is starting to develop in an exponential manner, and it's bringing us to a very big jump suddenly in technological development and international commerce and connections. It's increasing the connection and our participation and interdependence between everyone. And other countries want to get into that, and other organizations and greater organizations. And we see here that in some place, the technological and economic development together have become factors not just for distortion, but they're starting to stop. They're putting brakes on this whole machine. They're stopping it because it's not worth it anymore for those controlling forces to develop anymore. It's worth it for them to remain and leave people in a manner that they will only be consumers. Therefore, they're already starting to play here an opposite game. That's one thing. The other thing is, when we develop, our ego that develops over the last period in a very fast, exponential manner. It begins to get rounder. We start to learn from one another around the whole world. There starts to be interdependency between everyone. So we're starting games between countries through taxes and all kinds of blocks in the free market. And so we're not profiting, we're losing. There's a big connection between countries on the one hand, and on the other hand, each and every country wants to protect its own economy. So they're putting up these barriers for the free market. So then, even though the world is becoming more connected and rounder, we are cutting these ties, these natural ties that must develop. We're cutting this hidden hand, apparently. And we don't want to go according to that. We're going against our egoistic nature. It's the opposite. We don't want to allow our simple ego to play the role of manager and arranging everything. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, our ego, when it develops, it begins to, after this peak of consumption and development, it suddenly begins, I would say, it's some descent. It's getting into the descent, our ego, and it doesn't want so much to work or to make money or to succeed. A person is starting to receive a new kind of ego. He sees that it doesn't bring him happiness and joy. Or wealth, sorry. And here we see that things aren't measured according to money, but how much through money I can feel myself happy. And we see that people, happy people, precisely, they might be from Africa. And they're in a terrible economic state. They're at the bottom of the ladder of economic success. And people that have everything, they're precisely in the distortion socially, culturally, environmentally. Suicide rates and depression rates are rising. And they need medicine and whatnot. There's some type of complication here of a person in his life. Again, our ego is not growing by just growing, not in a quantity manner, but also it's changing in a qualitative manner. So I'm starting to make an accounting according to new values, that I want to be happy. And happy doesn't necessarily mean thanks to money. The more that I succeed and profit, and so what's next? And here we see a crisis in children education, how a person relates to his environment. We feel that there's some type of change that's coming from a person, his desires changing and becoming more qualitative and requiring things that you can't buy with money. But in the social change, family, society, that possibly through that you can bring him the feeling of happiness and wealth. And on the other hand, we see that our planet is limited in its resources, and the damages are great from all this development, and we don't see any benefit from it still, except for those that have 90% of the capital. But for a person, for a citizen, we're not leaving anything for the future except this big garbage covering the earth. The planet is limited. We're starting to receive a reaction from nature, also from a climate, from the side of climate. and also the quality of life, air, water, everything that's happening. The fact that we reached with all our technologies, where we reached a state where we can really fill the entire planet, but to fill it with what? They don't tell us, but what we eat is not food, and what we drink is really... Our quality of life is not measured according to what I have, that I have a few kilo, what I fill this my stomach with, but rather that in all my food, there's nothing that I can truly be happy about, it's very far from health and good things. In other words, the planet, it's clear that it's not giving us, according to its limitation, to develop, even according to Adam Smith, or the economy that came out of him as a result of the distortion of the ego, etc. And apart from that, there's some system of connections between us, like some hidden hand, but in a much clearer manner, that it's clear to all of us that we're connected to one another, and there's some law here in this mutual connection to one another. We're dependent on it, and all the money in the world won't help me. If the world is suffering, then at the end of the day it will come back to me as a boomerang, and I'll also suffer. To make a long story short, we're reaching some end of things. I can continue a lot about this, but altogether, from a person and from the environment, we feel a great resistance for the rest of the way. We're getting into some, not descent and slowdown, but rather to a block, like the end of the way. A cul-de-sac. You can call it a crisis, but I don't think it's precisely a crisis, but a place of development, developing onward. But again, don't forget that there's no Adam Smith. You can already say that dozens of years ago even, this whole process is not relevant. How can it be relevant if there's no gold behind the money or some kind of special steels? If the free market, there's all kinds of systems that completely cancel out the free market. They determine everything in advance. So we don't have those same conditions that he wrote about. That same hidden hand. At the time, what he claimed was relevant. In the integral economy, how will that hidden hand operate? Because there's a system here that creates balance. What force are we talking about here? The force of nature that's entirely connecting us to one single system in which we are all equal, like all the parts of nature. We're all connected and dependent on one another, like we are in nature. In an integral system or an analog system, we're all in mutual dependence. And what can direct us properly for our successful development is that we build human society that will be universal like all of nature, that a person will divide himself into two parts. Then now we're beginning to see this, that this is the demand. I have to take upon myself two channels of supply. One channel is what I need from my body, from my family, everything I need to exist in a healthy, good manner for those years that I exist. And also promise the same thing to my kids and grandchildren, just like a person wants. That's one channel that I need to receive the supply through. That's called my corporality. Apart from that, I need to get a feeling of happiness, joy, filling. And it has nothing to do with how much money I have. We've also learned, according to research, that above $70,000 a year, a person's happiness doesn't go up. And then, but I want to feel happy and good. I want to have a feeling of comfort in life. How do I reach that? And here we need to understand that this feeling comes to a person from him being in balance, in harmony with nature. It's not that we need to go walk around on the grass and smell the flowers and all that. No. But rather, this harmony is in human society. If we build a society in which we will feel that everyone is equal, that no one will feel that they're losing out on anything. On the one hand, it could be the best, but where will a person still receive filling? It's like I'm disappearing. It's like I don't feel where I'm living because my ego is fed on me being better than others, succeeding more in something. I always have to feel that I have something, and that's something I measure compared to others. So you're younger, so I'm wiser. He's prettier, so I have a greener grass. Doesn't matter what, but a person is built like that. But there's still something in me that I'm special. This feeling that even 1 gram of something, if I have more, it already gives me a feeling of life, that I'm happy. And here we begin to understand that we can precisely give each and every person in society a feeling that they're special and the most special in the world, that they're the king of the world. If we're talking about an integral society and all the balance in the entire society is dependent on each of us, and losing even one of us out of this system, the whole system will suffer from it, then we can give each and every person a qualitative feeling that he's special, that we're all dependent on him. And then this feeling will fill him more than anything else. It will just supply him completely. It will just fill him completely. But it all depends on education. But according to the systems of nature, we see that, like Adam Smith spoke in a natural, logical manner, according to our ego, that's how we needed to develop. In 150 years, we developed like that until we began to get this distortion at the beginning of the 20th century. We started having this distortion. So here we need to understand that the time has come for a new accounting, new economy. Still, if we try to get in deeper, Adam Smith says behavior, egoistic behavior of each individual brings about balance, economic balance. Here we need to, first of all, give a person in the new education, the integral education. We need to teach him which network we're in, which network is being revealed from inside. Like we come as fish in the net. We don't have any choice. How in this new situation can we reach filling, balance, good? That on the one hand we're completely connected to one another, and on the other hand everyone wants to feel happy. Then we reach those results, that in this case we don't have any solution apart from building a society in accordance with this network, because this network is managing us. So how do we build a society that will be balanced and suited to this network, where everyone will receive what they deserve for their corporate life, and everyone will receive their filling inside so that they'll feel not just that it's worth it for them to live, but that they're happy. At the beginning of the show, when we spoke about the hidden hand, you said it's the network. There was a simple network of connections in his days of Adam Smith. The question is, we're talking about the force of nature at the end of the day, the network. And also in the integral education, we speak about the network that connects us. What's the difference between the two? The leadership changed. In those days, he claimed, and correctly, that our general ego is managing us. And then each one that organizes something, he's filling some niche that we actually need. This business to open that. He's benefiting himself, but while he's benefiting himself and filling a place in society, it's one and the same thing. But today, when this network is being revealed, it's being revealed as the interdependency between us, that we're dependent on one another, so the network is managing us. And this network is saying, you reached a state where you're all dependent on one another from the beginning. Now that's it. And in this manner, that you're dependent on one another, you have to take into account the interdependency first of all, and build an economy according to the interdependency. And then it turns out that we have a completely new condition. In those days, the network used to say, develop each one, go make money, profit off each other, wherever you have a chance. The ego would direct us. Now the network is directing us. We see this is the problem of the current crisis, that we want to continue developing according to our ego, but we can no longer do that because the network that's been revealed is starting to determine its own conditions, and we're not capable of getting in there with our ego. Because we can't take into account the entire network. If we're all dependent on one another, if we're an integral society, analog, that each one is dependent on everyone, how can I receive this condition? I can't feel the entire world. And actually, I need to feel it. I need to feel it. I need to be in balance with the whole world. Each of us has to reach a state of development where he feels that he's connected with the entire world. Is it possible? Yes. Therefore, first of all, we need the integral education, and it says that we have to, first of all, bring a person to the understanding which world he's in, what connection he's in, and what economy and society and industry and commerce we need to build now. We need to truly begin with human nature, because nature, the general nature, this network is obligating us. We want to switch to the subject of collective intelligence. We speak a lot about the collective intelligence to get information about what's happening in nature. The question is, the classic economic balance is not a clear example for balance with nature, collective intelligence. There's a bunch of people that are working together and they reach a balance together. They don't operate to be connected. They're not operating to identify with that same common network, with the general nature. They're not taking into account that we've reached our maximum egoistic development, and that today we're actually managed in a new manner. The development until now was natural, it didn't take into account the connections between us. Rather, each one of us go and develop as much as you want without any limitation. And now this condition is being revealed that you can't develop the way you want to without limitations, but rather you have to develop only on the condition that you are an integral part inside this network, the correct element inside this entire puzzle that we're all making up. We're going to reach a state of wisdom of crowds integral wisdom of crowds, if we connect, like in a group, let's say, like in wisdom of crowds, you take a group, and that's where you do this experiment, right? If you take a group and you begin to escort them through education and acquiring knowledge, integral knowledge, then you'll reach a situation where this group will begin to be connected in an integral manner. And then all its decisions will be in accordance with the network that is managing us. That's how we can verify all the connections. We can learn statistics. We can see what's really happening in such a society. But the condition is simple, that all the games in that same system, all the people, 10 or 1,000, it doesn't matter how much, they need to feel that they belong to that society, to that same circle, that there's equality between them, that they're all dependent on one another and connected. And then in this manner, in this uniform manner, that we teach them how to build this connection, this homogeneous connection, that we give them some problem. They will solve the problem precisely from the force of connection between them. Just like you say that it's the wisdom of crowds, it's not the power of connection. It's just each one throwing out a number or a cube, and from 1,000 cubes, then you get some average input. It's always according to statistics. We know. We all learn this in university. There's nothing special about it. The wisdom of crowds is based on the same law. All of a sudden, when they start talking about it, they think there's something special, but it's just like the probability theory. You're economists, you know what statistics are. I don't need to tell you. But we still use this term, wisdom of crowds, because what's interesting here is the knowledge that suddenly 1,000 simple people reach a result. But of course, the result is close to the center. In every place, it's correct. There's now a point that we spoke about a lot before the show. We want to verify. It's very important to us as integral economists. We want to understand our responsibility toward the process of education and correction. Lately, you said that the war against the black market can hold up the correction process of the general correction process of the society. The reason why people survive is because there's some pillow. If I'm unemployed and I'm receiving 1,000 shekels a month, let's say, I don't know how much you receive there, and I have on the side, like a simple employee, another 500,000, then I slowly use that. So it turns out that somehow I'm completing what I'm missing and I'm not suffering. Therefore, it's carrying on, and there's not really drastic results that we should have according to the data. That's exactly our question, because when we explain to people, we have an educational program for fighting the black market, create a family feeling. What are you going to do with this black capital? You're the country Now you come and you clean out the black market. You take it from everyone. You don't do anything to them. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about courts and prisons. Whoever brings the black money, like they used to do in the army once upon a time, you give something back. You bring it to the police and nobody asks you questions. You put it down and you walk away. So the question is, where will it go? The country won't use it properly. It's better to leave it in the hands of the people. So here's an important point. Well, if you put money in, then it'll help cut the budgets. No, that's not true. It'll go in every direction except to the citizen. Our question is more significant. In our explanation, we talk about a plan that's different from the others that say, let's tell on one and tattletale on one another, and it has to be, we're saying it has to be a process of education, it has to be a family feeling we need to create. Our question is, in that we are providing some kind of solution, are we not holding up the correction process as integral economists? The process of correction has to be an education of the people for the new era that's coming, and we cannot stop it. We can somehow sweeten it, hold it up a bit, but at the end of the day, we can't stop it. Sooner or later, plus minus, I spoke about the crisis and all kinds of results we're talking about 10 years ago, and I thought in a year or two, that's it, it will break out and blow up. No, you see, today it's clear that it's happening like this. You can go in my blog and shows from 10 years ago. Even before that, we spoke about it. So it continued, it got smeared. But still, we're getting into it. It's some kind of train with all of humanity on it that we're getting into. We're going through a gate to the new world. Now the question is, how are we preparing the people sitting on the train? How are we preparing them for this new world? That's it. We need to get to the new gate. We have only a few years left, not a lot. I don't think it's a lot, but let's say. So we need to, it's only education, there's nothing else. Without education, you cannot start any acts. It all depends on the new man. So I want to see, I didn't really understand yet in our explanation on this specific subject of black capital. We wrote about it in the book. We're talking about the solution through education and not regulation, etc. Is there a place to explain these issues? Because what I understood from you, it can hold up the process of correction. Should we explain this issue? Yes, of course, like we explained it today. To continue with the current theme, with the creating a family atmosphere, etc. Okay, yes. Do you want to add anything about this? So we have another question that's based on things you spoke about. You said that socialism, communism, capitalism, all the standard economic models, they're going bankrupt, they're all based on ego, and they're not suited to nature. Only the ones that are in balance with nature will profit, the rest will lose out. The question is, how do we explain these things to an average person? We know that we need to talk about profit and not the negative things, and he's not interested. Educate a child according to his way. How do we do it? I'm also having difficulties with that. I must say that I also don't understand it so much, how to approach the citizen, the regular citizen, and start dealing with him. I don't think it's possible to do it in one brief conversation. There has to be some entry point to some experience, some type of image or life, maybe through some movie, some situation that you're visualizing the new life for him. From the side of nature, we're all in this sphere, and this is how it manages us. From the side of our inner ego, how can we match ourselves to nature in life, in the family, in work, in society, and with the kids and everything? Meaning that each person that is divided into a few levels in his behavior and his attitude, to closer to him, people further than him, and the general nature, how do we need to be in the ideal manner based on what nature is presenting to us at the moment as necessities, and how can we advance in this manner? Or to show it in some movie in which a person sees how this life can exist if we understood and agree with it. Because if we don't, then nature will bend us, and then we'll have lots of troubles. Then afterward, you can get into education, knowledge, acquiring knowledge. How can we explain it to people? Only if we truly will reveal to them. It's still, you need to start with the philosophy, with the sociology, all those things that are being revealed gradually to us as new systems, new forces, and to begin from there. I don't think that turning to the simple man and to attempt to make him rounder with all kinds of groups. There's some that use this for coaching, healing for nerves, for making people feel better, better mood, security, confidence, health. I think that we need to, if possible, create a few movies. A few movies, one about popular science, simple, where we explain how it's from nature's side. Even about the economy, like we spoke of today, that it used to develop, and all of humanity that developed through thousands of years. Adam Smith didn't discover anything new. He just arranged it. Before him, did people develop in the ego? I saw in the market, let's say in the Middle Ages, if there were eggs missing, I would develop my eggs business and bring them to the market. It's the same Adam Smith. That's how it was all along. The tailors used to organize themselves there, shoemakers, all in organizations. It was hundreds of years before Adam Smith, all the unions. So it's not new. From him onward, it continued in a very tight manner, the exchange, commerce, and politics all together. There was a period like that, of a jump. And this is how a person becomes revealed. I think we need to make a few movies like that, so a person will understand from watching on the screen He'll see an example. And from nature, psychology, what he's earning, culture, family, what nature is obligating us, and words will not help us here so much. A person needs to feel this across from that, what's in front of him. And he also needs to see that this is a simple change. If we're talking about me personally, I need to now start changing my attitude to society. It's impossible. However, if we're talking about us in an artificial manner, beginning to organize society, where we all start being dependent on one another, and we all start being obligated to one another in a uniform manner, and we go through this in the groups, and we all get into it in the global network, that all of humanity gets into it. Because, thank God, we have 70 or 80% of the people will be unemployed. And if we release the new technology, then 90% will be unemployed. With the new technology, people won't have anything to do. You'll have cars without drivers, and a person will print whatever they want on that new printer. And a person won't have anything to do. Then it turns out, then apart from that special computer programmers that will create special programs, or the simple man that has to do installation in your house, there's not going to be any professions left. Then this person will disappear altogether. What was so characteristic of this last period, let's say, last 100 years, it will just disappear. It just won't be there. The simple workers, they cannot be replaced by machines, by robots. And the big experts, the special ones, even operations today are done by the machine and not by people. So it turns out that it's not the future. We're stopping this period and not allowing it to break out. Also in our explanation, we see what great resistance people have to connecting. Even with this prophet, we're giving examples how to come together to profit more. Is it possible to assume that he would rather be free, according to his definition, not dependent on others and in a bad situation, than rather enslaved under some law of the integral economy? I think it depends on the values of society only, and especially in the education of kids, because kids can influence the adults in a manner that they will be obligated to do everything that the kid wants. Otherwise, they'll be ashamed. And therefore, we need to use everything that we can to influence a person. But again, the environment determines what will happen. And if we, in an artificial manner, we know human nature and there's no choice, and none of us wants it, and all this organization is against our nature, but we have no choice. When we stand, we connect, and we fight against the threat. The same here. It's a war. But the war in which everyone needs to press on himself a little bit for the sake of the good future. And if society is giving me this support, then I'm in a good mood. Then I'm feeling great. and I do it without any effort, just the opposite. I receive forces from the environment all the time. It's not difficult like it is today, that each movement I need to waste on it this and that many calories. Here I can work for the sake of the environment and not feel that I'm using up calories, just the opposite, I'm receiving. If the environment is supplying me with a feeling that I'm getting a salary, that they're encouraging me and supporting me, then it's not work. Then it's just the opposite. I'm interested in doing it. It all depends on how the environment around me appreciates me and how they influence me. It's we need to make this arrangement. But if there is an environment that is playing like that with everyone, then it's not difficult for anyone. To continue what Guy asked, truly, I would rather make less by myself than make more from working with others. Will my DNA for making economic decisions change in the integral society, or will I always need pressure to go along with my friends? Yes, you will always need social pressure until you won't be corrected, that the influence of the society will be reception in itself. So actually, the integral education, because the network that's being revealed, what's it saying to us? You're getting into a new era. From now on, you're managed by a network that's not only integral, you're managed by an altruistic network. And if you will be in accordance with that network, you will be nurtured, you will get filled. And if you're not, you won't. We are now discovering that people are losing a will to live, to profit. I'd rather lie on the couch and I won't do anything. I don't need all those millions. And even though I have the opportunity, where does that come from? If you look at it egoistically, simply, how can you lie down? How can you not jump up and run and go make those millions? I don't want to. Why? I don't want to. He doesn't feel that he's getting filling from the million. We're already seeing that this new network that is beginning to wake up and get close to us, we're starting to be managed in a new way. You see what's happening in Europe. 100 years ago, who would lose himself? Who would go crazy? Where was there suicide? Where was there such a thing that I would be so desperate, such a sickness that this sickness is throughout Europe? Where does it come from? We're not taking into account all the data correctly. To read them all together, it becomes a very clear map that we have no choice. We have another 2 minutes before we're finishing. We have a very important issue to verify. One of the claims the economists say that what we call is balanced. It's not natural. It forces a person to behave and to participate in the system, and it doesn't give him free choice, the person in the integral economy. I don't understand where there's freedom of choice in their system. There's no freedom of choice in their system. I look where I can go in and profit, and after doing this verification, I do it. It's not choice. Do I have a choice? Choice is when I can do what I choose and not what the others are leaving me, that I can only go into this narrow niche and only there I can profit, make my bread, earn my living. What kind of choice is that? That I'm the freedom of search? There's also not, but let's say that there is. But after I search and I find, what choice do I have? It's not choice, it's not correct. But here, in the integral network, we're connecting, and each one is feeling how much he's adding, and precisely he is adding to this entire network and receiving from it in accordance with that, the feeling of filling. I understand that we have a lot more to verify, but That's how we'll advance. We could really continue talking about this a lot, but unfortunately our time is up. Dear viewers, we reached the end of another show, a very interesting one, where we dealt with the economic and social approach of Baal HaSulam. We want to remind you that you can see all these shows on our site, www.kab.coil, and also on Channel 66. Thank you, Dr. Laitman. Thank you, Igor. Thank you, viewers, for being with us. Until next time, so long.